Hi, I'm Nick from Nutrient, and I'd like to show you a quick example of a usage of Claude connected with our new MCP server, which connects up to DWS Processor API for all types of document processing, editing, and creation, for example. And this example is basically just to save you a little bit of time. So in tax filing season, you always need to do some type of document manipulation, whether that's conversions from one thing to another or extraction of information from receipts, from invoices, etc. I have to do the same thing. It takes up so much time and it's kind of frustrating. So I thought I'd show a quick example, even though I'm a month late, of what I would like to do with my receipts. So I dropped all of my receipts into my sandbox and basically said, I do not want you to edit these files specifically, but I want you to perform some tasks on top of these. So first of all, I want to make sure that they're all in a PDF format because we just want to make them accessible in the future in a common format. And then I'd like them to have the same naming convention. And this is kind of frustrating because often you get receipts from everywhere with random names. And well, it's really hard to navigate them on a directory level at that point. I then want them to be outputted into a new directory, which I've called normalize here. Basically, it will either have to convert them or it'll have to copy them over. And then lastly, I wanted it to extract all the total amounts from the receipts and create a CSV file with the information about each of the receipts. And I had to add a little bit more information in here because I had to do some currency conversions at the same time. So it just made things a little more complicated, but it's interesting to see how Claude can deal with this. So quick note, I do have the Nutrient DWS MCP server active there. I also use the file system MCP server, which is globally available as well. And that's just to allow us to move and copy and rename files, for example. So I'm going to kick this off. It will take a while, but at this point you can go away, make a coffee as Claude tells you to, and then come back and see the result. Okay, it's finished now, and it's kind of interesting. I did actually have to make a few little adjustments to the prompt just to ensure that each file was actually treated as a receipt here, because some of them were actually mentioned as an invoice. Yeah, my bad. And then the other thing is that I had to just nudge it in the direction of using Nutrient DWS, especially when reading from different file formats. It was slightly problematic when it tried to use native tools and when it tried to actually write scripts to do it itself. Nutrient is just a little bit better at doing that, so I had to nudge it in that direction. So it's interesting to have a quick look through at actually what happened. So had a look in the sandbox to find out what files and directories were actually in there, which was obviously the receipts and stuff. Tried to create the directory, which is the normalized directory that we wanted to do, and then just started planning in general. Interestingly here, it actually took the approach of using scripts or writing JavaScript to basically keep track of what had been processed. So it took each file name and basically appended that to a file where it could actually keep track. So quite interesting in general. There's lots of little things that it did try on the way through. Well, I'm not going to jump into that too much, but here we can see the bulk of what happened. So it realized that the document processor from Nutrient DWS was the way forward. So it basically just started calling the document processor to output each of the PDFs, and then some of them would have actually been converted, which one of these would have been a conversion because there were PNGs in there as well. At this point, we did hit a context limit. So it asked us if we wanted to continue. I said yes. I was a little worried that the context would actually be lost a little bit, but it remained pretty good. It just continued processing each of the receipts one by one, which was quite good. So in the end, it basically worked out, okay, I've processed all of those files. I now need to extract the information into the CSV file it originally tried, and it actually opened up a little code editor to do all of this and outputted this as a CSV. Lots of other stuff, tries to do a load of other stuff, and then in the end, it basically said, I'm finished. So obviously, this is an LLM. you have to go careful. You have to have a look at what it's done afterwards. And lo and behold, it wasn't 100% correct. I noticed that some of the dates were actually out of line and it hallucinated some of the dates. So I had to go back in and basically say, hey, you've not done this quite right. Go back in, read the file itself, and find out what the dates were for to rename the files to the correct file name. It did that, and yeah, you can see it moved a few files around. Basically, these moves were renamings of the files to actually insert the correct date in the file name. So that's great. I did a little bit more of a check later on, and I realized that it hadn't actually extracted some of the company names from the content as well, because some of the original receipts were actually called invoice. Again, let's ignore that. Some of them were called receipts as well, and it just copied those over blindly. So I had to just prompt it again just to say, hey, go and have a look at the content and extract the company name from there, and then rename the file to the correct name. And it did this pretty well, actually. It used Nutrient DWS to be able to actually read the content of the file, and it did that a few times and then move the files into the correct location, and then updated the resulting CSV to correct those company names as well. So it gave me a little summary at the end. This is kind of nice, and it gave me a receipt total as well, which is kind of fun. If we have a look in the sandbox now, we have a normalized directory, which is the one that I said to output all of these receipts to. You can see the common format across all of them. All the dates are here and correct, which is good. And all of the company names actually do kind of make sense if I actually cross-reference those. So this is a really interesting use case in general. We've processed many, many files, and it did take a little bit of time, but I was able to go away during that time and then just assess what it did afterwards, saving me hours, basically, because I don't want to be there just basically typing and trying to rename files, and I don't want to be the one grepping through files to find the dates, etc., etc. So this is an interesting example because I could have gone away and written some code to actually perform this task, or I could have even just asked an LLM to actually write some code to perform this task. But this actually opens the solutions up to a wider market in general, because not everyone is confident with code and asking LLMs to write code at the same time. So having that option just to use your natural language to instruct the LLM of what you should be doing with documents and document workflows is quite powerful. Obviously, the advantages there are basically that you, one, save time because you can just kick it off and then go away and do something else, but also that you can iterate on what you already have. And that's a little bit more difficult with code half of the time because it just takes a little bit of time to be able to actually iterate on code in general. So I'd like to know if you have a similar use case or if you can think of other use cases where you could actually batch process multiple documents, or you have a workflow which could be simplified down into a prompt and then just let it run wild. I'm very interested.